Hello you dirty dogs and welcome back to One on One, the most in-depth football show on YouTube. On today's episode, we're reacting to the latest Ballon d'Or Power Rankings. Definitely didn't say rankings the previous three takes. Now after being cancelled in 2020, the Ballon d'Or is back, baby. So, who are the leading candidates to succeed 2019's winner, Lionel Messi, apart from Lionel Messi? Now, the prize won't be handed out until December, so there may be some permutations between now and then. However, with the Euros and the Copa America in our rear view mirrors, it's going to take something monumental to upset the odds. In fact, I think the most credible bit of silverware between now and then is the European Super Cup. So I think we're going to be in the right ballpark with these. Now, we're going to use goals power rankings to form the basis of this episode, breaking down their top 20 entries and then remoulding it in our image. I say our, I mean mine. This is my show. Okay, so who's in their top 20? Are the players deserving of their current standing in the list? And who will still be in with a shout of winning football's most coveted individual award come December? Before we start though, a few important things to remember. The Ballon d'Or is based on a player's exploits within a calendar year, so from January to December. Whereas FIFA's The Best Awards are based on a specific season. Also, each of the 180 strong jurors that ultimately decide who the Ballon d'Or goes to are instructed to use the following criteria. They must consider both individual and collective performance. They must consider player class, which is a loose term for both talent and fair play. And a player's career will also be taken into consideration. Now we've learnt that, the Modric Ballon d'Or perhaps makes a little bit more sense. Having said all that, I'll still be utilising numbers from across the 2021 season, because dividing them into calendar years is a ball ache. But I will put said players' 2021 totals on screen, just for you. Oh, and if this video hits 3k likes, I will go ahead and do a second version of the kit review video that we did last week. About to hit 50k, so support on that, thoroughly appreciated. Pedri, what a little bloody magician. 8th most minutes in the Barca squad in 2021, 4th for passes into the penalty area, and 1st for defensive pressures. He's 18. When I was 18, I looked like this. Not to mention, he was playing Segunda Division football the season prior. Now, of course, only claimed the Copa del Rey in 2021. But he was Young Player of the Tournament at Euro 2020. And while Barcelona are a mess both on and off the pitch, at least it's been conducive to getting this guy minutes. Had they had their shit together, might not have happened. And I envisage him being just as important at the start of next season as he was at the tail end of 2021. Do you know what? Owing to the momentum from the Euros, I could see him climbing this list, maybe getting as high as 15th. Foden. Now, you're not going to find many bigger Phil Foden fans than me, but I do have to concede that in order to compete in earnest for an award like the Ballon d'Or, you have to clock up a significant amount of game time domestically speaking, don't you? Now, while he was super effective when on the pitch across multiple competitions, Phil only racked up 1,600 minutes in the Premier League. That was the 13th best return in the squad. This led to 14 goal contributions in 17 starts, scoring as many as Gabby Jesus and Riyad Mahrez, despite the fact they both clocked up more minutes. Pep also really entrusted him in the Champions League, where Foden made a joint high 13 appearances at the Citizens. Endured a bit of a difficult Euros campaign though, didn't he? Was largely anonymous in the 159 minutes that he featured and picked up a knock in the knockout rounds. At club level, in those wide positions, there's every chance that he's still going to be behind Mahrez and Sterling as well moving into the next season. I think 19th is pretty generous for Phil in this instance, but does he have the potential to be a finalist? Absolutely. Gundogan. Now, the 30-year-old had the season of his life at club level, didn't they? 17 goals in all competitions for Manchester City, and the Citizens' leading marksman in the Premier League as they wrestled back the title from Liverpool. Despite the fact he only made 23 starts. Although this momentum didn't really carry into the Euros, where he was deployed in a deeper position by Joachim Löw, and by the end he was an unused substitute against England as the Mannschaft were knocked out. Get in. I would say that these performances mixed with that Champions League loss mean that his stock has probably dropped pretty dramatically with regards to individual gongs since February, March. Unless Gundogan starts the season on fire once more, I can see him dropping out of the top 20 altogether, to be perfectly frank. Mount. How is Mason Mount still 22? Always available too. His fitness record is insane. Played the most minutes at Chelsea last term. The season before that, he was third for minutes. The season before that, 35 appearances in the Championship aged 19. The season before that, 29 appearances in the Eredivisie aged 18. And what makes his fitness record all the more impressive is the way that he plays. Last season, he was in the top 5% for players in his position when it came to pressures and tackles. He's absolutely bloody relentless, and more importantly, he has the technique to match, putting up 11 goal contributions in 32 league starts. And he was probably a little bit unlucky not to have more. XG put him closer to 17 goal contributions, which is a frightening level of output for a 22-year-old playing as a floating 8. And his 5 appearances at the Euros were largely positive too, although I'm sure there's people out there that are just going to hone in on the fact he went missing a little bit in the final against the Italians. I've got this gut instinct that Money Mace is going to step it up again once more in the new season. And like Pedri, I expect him to leapfrog a few of these names down here and finish higher when we're talking Ballon d'Or. Neymar lost the Liga and crown, lost the Copa America final, and domestically only managed 15.790s. Very precise. That's how we do things on one-on-one. However, still mesmerising when fit. Look at this chart. In the top 1% for wingers in Europe's top 5 leagues for shots, expected assists, non-penalty goals and expected assists, shot creating actions, progressive passes, dribbles completed. Still, is he on the pitch enough to warrant a place in the top 20? He's only played 20 plus league games in one of the 4 seasons that he's been at the Parc des Princes. Let that sink in. He's missed 84 games. The polar opposite of Mount and our next entry. Ability wise, still top 5 in the world. But that's not what this award is. Yes, PSG did win the Coupe de France, but that pales in comparison with other company that he's keeping in this top 20. A big part of me thinks he's here on name alone, to be perfectly frank. Not to mention 0 goal contributions in 3 Copa America games. Donnarumma. Gigi Donnarumma is the only goalkeeper to make this list, actually. At 22, he's already racked up 215 appearances in Serie A, sustaining a save percentage of 74%. This was despite AC finishing outside the top 4 in all but 1 of his 6 seasons. He made 30 league starts at 16 years old. Let's get weighty now. Is this the most consistent start to a career in football history? Now, if we're talking calendar years, Donnarumma has had a 2021 to remember. Led AC Milan to an unlikely second placed finish, won the player of the tournament at Euro 2020 as Italy clinched the title, and signed a contract with PSG worth £12 million a year. Given his contribution in those successes as well, where he was bloody central, I think that this is far too low. I think he deserves a place in the top 10, to be frank. Kane, the Premier League's Golden Boot winner with 22 strikes, which shook out at around 0.67 goals per 90, 37 goals and assists in 35 starts, League Cup finalist, Euros finalist, but still no major silverware to his name, and is now facing the prospect of being managed by Nuno, who's fine, but it feels like regression, doesn't it? It is scary to think where Spurs would have finished had he not had an unbelievable season. And for his individual performance, I don't begrudge him a place in this top 20, but he's not going to get any higher than this unless he secures that £100 million move to Man City. I will say that. Diaz, the Premier League Player of the Year in his maiden campaign. Racked up the most outfield minutes for Manchester City, completed the most clearances, made the most blocks, averaged the most passes, and completed the most progressive distance with those passes. Yeah, just a crucial component of City winning the league by 12 points. Was a mainstay for Portugal as his side were knocked out in the round of 16 by a pretty unimpressive Belgium. So maybe that knocks his stock down a little bit. But yeah, also won the Carabao Cup and got to the Champions League final. So I think given his sensational debut campaign, should be top 10 once more. Which means I have to find 2 players to pull out of the top 10 or I'm just waffling. Sterling. Sterling's performances at the Euros have definitely catapulted him back up this list, haven't they? And rightly so. Now, his season wasn't unbelievable by his lofty standards, but it was still pretty solid. Only De Bruyne registered more assists in the league, and only Gundogan scored more goals. Yet some people will try and convince you it was catastrophic. Maybe that UCL performance weighing too heavily on people's minds. Now, he turns 27 this year, so plenty of gas left in the tank, but it will be interesting to see if he can evolve as a player to become less reliant upon his physicality. Most analysts will tell you that wingers peak between 23 and 26, and if you look at his numbers, there is a decline year on year since 17-18 in terms of output in the league. So in 17-18, 29 goals and assists. In 18-19, that went to 27. In 19-20, 21. And 2021 was 17 goals and assists. I'm not saying that's terminal, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was utilised in a slightly different way in the next couple of years. It'd be interesting to see if Manchester City stick or twist with him on that left-hand or right-hand side. The cynic in me thinks they may have already got the best out of him, but the optimist has been rejuvenated by his form for England, and on his day, still one of the best wingers in the world. I think this position's about right though. Benzema. Last season, Real Madrid averaged 1.76 goals per game. That was their second worst return in the last decade. Of these goals, Benzema contributed to 32 of them in 33 starts in La Liga. 23 of them were goals, his best return since the 2015-16 season. In short, without him, they would have been embarrassing. In the campaign just gone by, he also broke into Real Madrid's top 10 appearance makers of all time, and is only 30 goals away from breaking into their top 3 goal scorers of all time. So if we're taking career into consideration, like the Ballon d'Or say they do, those things should carry weight. He also fared pretty well at the Euros, didn't he? 4 goals in 4 starts, justifying his controversial return, in sporting terms, to the France setup. However, finished the season trophyless. But maybe Kane aside, Benzema probably the biggest carry job on this list. Team on back. Now I think he should be ahead of the next entry, but I am comfortable with him being outside of the top 10. So we're at the halfway mark in this epic. So far we have 3 hard disagrees, which is Neymar, Donnarumma and Ruben Diaz. We have Gundogan as the most likely to drop out of the top 20 candidates, and Pedri and Mount sort of poised to surge up the list from now until December. Let's see what the top 10 holds. Chiesa. Now, this is the biggest piece of recency bias on the list. I rate Chiesa. I think he was wonderful in the knockout games in the Euros, but 16 goal involvements in 28 league starts does not qualify you for a top 10 position for the Ballon d'Or. Was impressive in the Champions League as well, racking up 5 goal contributions in 6 starts. Did start to carve a name towards the end of the season as a big game player, scored the winner against Atalanta in the Coppa Italia, and scored in both legs, if memory serves me correctly, against Porto in the Champions League. But Morata scored and assisted at a greater rate for Juventus last season, and also scored more goals for his country at the Euros, and he is nowhere near this list. Don't want to be a negative Nelly, but I think I might take Chiesa out full stop. Makes room for Donnarumma. Chiesa's time will come, but for now, I don't think the output is tantamount to the hype. Haaland. Do I even bother reading his stats? We all know he's absolutely ridiculous, don't we? It feels inconceivable that there's 8 players ahead of him, given he had more goal contributions than appearances in the League and Champions League. However, did only finish the season with the Pokal, and Norway didn't qualify for the Euros, and his form in World Cup qualifiers reads 0 goals in 3 appearances. The international stage, the only stage he's not conquered at this point. And he's 20. I was selling Hoovers at 20, but there we go. Here's an interesting question for you guys at home, rather than going over boring numbers that you all know. Do you think he can win the Ballon d'Or while at Dortmund? Because I can actually see him, even next year, finishing outside of the top 5 owing to a lack of domestic success. A bit mad that he's 6 places higher than the Euros player of the tournament, but we've already established that Donnarumma should be in the top 10. So I'm fine with this. Ronaldo. He's 36 and he scored 29 goals in 31 starts. Also racked up the second most minutes at Juve in 2021 after fullback Danilo. Medical marvel. Yes, 6 of them were penalties. I can hear the Penaldo comments emanating from this section below. But as were 6 of Romelu Lukaku's 24 goals. Ronaldo's performances in the Champions League did take a big old tumble though. His return of 4 goals in Europe's Premier competition is his joint lowest campaign to date, with the other one being the season before at Juve. However, his claim to be in the top 10 did take a big old bump after the Euros, where he finished top goal scorer and levelled Ali Daei's record of most goals at international level. Juve did manage to win the Coppa Italia, but he didn't score in the final, but there's no way they would have snuck into the Champions League places without him. He's still got it. Still top 10. De Bruyne. Another victim of the Ballon d'Or not being a thing in 2020, because in the 1920 season, the Belgian got 33 goals and assists in 32 starts. Mental. This season, 18 goals and assists in 23 league starts. Had that period, didn't he, in the middle of the season where that hamstring injury kept him out for about 7 games. Then he rounded off the season with a pretty substantial eye injury after playing so-so in the Champions League final. Did carry his team at the Euros though. When he wasn't on the pitch, they were embarrassing. Case in point being the game against Denmark. I actually think he's pretty lucky to be in the top 10 and is the second player that I would usurp for Ruben Diaz. Mbappe. I mean, like Ronaldo and Haaland, he is on here just for pure, unadulterated individual output, isn't he? 34 goal contributions in 27 Ligue 1 starts. And they didn't fucking win it. 7 goals clear of Depay and Ben Yedder as the league's top marksman. And he also got 11 goal contributions in 10 Champions League starts, including very, very memorable performances against both Barcelona and Bayern Munich, which felt at the time like a bit of a passing of the torch. But then the tail end of their season, Les Parisiens, went down less shitter. He also dropped a stinker, didn't he, against Manchester City in the semi-finals, where he had a big fat 0 shots. He also failed to score at the European Championships, of course missed that crucial penalty, which we won't hold against him. And I've got a feeling that his contract situation might overshadow the start of his new season. Again, given 1 Coupe de France, maybe lucky to be as high as 6th. Although given PSG's summer, I can see them scoring about 100 goals before Christmas. Yeah, I'm fine with it. Lukaku. I mean, this was the season where Lukaku became a truly impressive all-round striker, wasn't it? As well as scoring 24 goals, Belgium's all-time top goal scorer also assisted 11, which was a club high at Inter. You may be also surprised to learn that he was the Nerazzurri's most prolific dribbler last season as well, beating his man 1.5 times per game. He was the centrepiece in Conte's master plan to bring home the Scudetto after an 11-year absence. He also got 4 in 5 games at the Euros, and along with KDB, pretty much carried his country. I think 5th is deserving, but does he get any closer in his career than this? I think at 28, at the peak of his powers, I'm glad that our overriding memory of him as a striker will now be someone who crushed it both in the Premier League and Serie A, rather than just someone who had an iffy 2 years at Manchester United. But given Inter's financial woes, the selling of some key assets, he's going to have to play out of his skin to sustain those levels. Let's hope it happens. Kante. I think France's performance at the Euros might see his stock take a little bit of a tumble in this regard. Did bounce back in very impressive fashion from an injury-hit 2019-20 campaign where he only started 20 games. However, last season, still only managed 24. Had some standout performances in the Champions League, such as those ties against Real Madrid. But can you give the Ballon d'Or to a guy who's missed the 3rd of a domestic campaign and whose national side were beat by the Swiss? Love the Swiss, but still. I'm not sure. And I think now his position, lofty position of 4th, feels somewhat generous. I think I'd keep him inside the top 10, but to be within touching distance of our next entry, Jorginho, who won Euro 2020 as the centrepiece of his side, generous. Jorginho. For me, probably the player of the tournament at Euro 2020. Rebounded after a sticky start to the season under Lampard to make 28 appearances for Chelsea in the league. Set a new record at European Championships for interceptions, which was held by Marcel Desailly from 1996. As well as that, covered the most distance, won the most fouls. For Italy, he made the most passes. He made the most passes into the final third. Not just a sideways pass merchant, you're wrong, football Twitter. And also made the most recoveries. Just an absolute boss. Saying that doesn't have the same weight of career behind him that Modric brought into that 2018 win. Enjoy your bronze. That is an outstanding effort, Georgie boy. Lewandowski. Should have won it in 2020. I would love for them to give him that reward retrospectively, because I'm not sure why they are discounting the efforts of footballers who played through arguably the toughest season in a mental capacity that there's ever been. Now, the party line for cancelling the 2020 Ballon d'Or was this. France Football cites the unordinary conditions behind closed doors with 5 replacements, Champions League final played in a single game, and the fact that some players have had their domestic seasons cut short. Okay, but were you going to pick a winner from Ligue 1, the Eredivisie, or the SPFL? Probably not. And following on from that stellar 2020, 34 goals and 4 assists as Bayern won the Bundesliga for the umpteenth time, as well as the Club World Cup. Now, we all wanted Messi to win the Copa America because it's his first international trophy in, 15 years? But it has come at a cost, hasn't it? Lewandowski, for the second year, has been denied. Really feel for him. And had he, led Poland to an unlikely quarters or semi-finals and claimed the Golden Boot, maybe he'd still be in with a shout, but he's not, is he? Just the 47 goal involvements for Messi in 2021. I mean, if he only had the Copa del Rey to his name, Lewandowski's. And speaking of carry jobs, let's not downplay how embarrassing Barcelona would have been without this man. Probably would have been caught by Lopetegui's Sevilla, but Messi was like, no, I'm going to play every game. I'm going to play the most games, in fact, since the 2014-15 season, despite being 34, and kicked to every single week. Ansu Fati suffered a season-ending injury early on. Ousmane Dembele only put together 19 starts. Griezmann was fine, I guess. But somewhat sickeningly, Messi almost found another gear, taking 5.6 shots per 90, the most of his Barcelona career in a domestic sense. 6.2 shots per 90 and 3.8 key passes in the Champions League, and they still got hammered by PSG. I don't need to provide context for those numbers because they're sickening. Okay, yes, Messi at number 1. A 20-minute video with the most obvious answer of all time. Click. So, that was one-on-one for another week. Hit me up with some of your pearls of wisdom, your ideas in the comments below. What do you want to see me do next week? Let me know. I'll be in the comments, like I always am, in the first hour. Like this video, and if we get enough likes, we'll do that kit review. Subscribe to Euro Football Daily with notifications on. We need some fresh blood. Get involved. And see you next time, I guess. Bye.